Today I want to show you how I made the pattern for this dress. I have been getting some questions about which pattern I used to make this dress, but unfortunately I have made this dress myself, therefore cannot send you to a site where they sell this pattern. Of course, it do exist a lot of patterns already looking like this, so if you want to do some research, there is probably something looking a lot like this online. But in this video I'm going to show you how I created the pattern for this dress. Originally I used the Betty dress pattern from Sew Over It. I will link to the pattern in the description down below. Today I will only use the skirt pattern because I have been doing some fitting of the bodies and have ended up with a solution with princess seam, and this one are using darts instead. I will not be showing how to make princess seam out of a pattern with darts, but I will show how you can make these little knots on the shoulders. That's what I will be doing today. I will illustrate how you can do it with this pattern, but I will use the princess seam pattern myself. For this project I'm going to use this fabric. It's like 100% cotton fabric that I got from IKEA. I was looking online for fabrics and I came across this fabric, and it did remind me of a dress that I saw the closet historian made. And if you really want to see someone who knows how to do pattern hacks, I recommend that you take a look at her profile that I also will link down below, because she knows how to hack patterns and I'm just a beginner, so please bear with me while looking at this video. So when that is said, let's get to it. I start by tracing off the pattern that I already got onto some tracing paper using a black marker so you can see clearer what I'm drawing, and my phone and tape roller as a fabric weight, or here we can probably call it a paperweight. Just to control with what I did last time, I take out the pattern I used for this yellow dress. Then I take my ruler and make the extensions I need for the shoulder straps. I think that I added about 20 cm extra to the shoulder strap, but I'm not quite sure. If you have enough fabric, you can just add a bit extra and then reduce it afterwards if you find out that it will be a little bit too much. I curve off the edge of my shoulder strap. This shape will give me the look I'm going for the bow on my shoulder. So just to get a better understanding of what I have done here are my original pattern and here is the piece I have added to be able to tie bows on my shoulder. To compare it with the Betty dress pattern, you will see that the shoulder will go here and you will just need to extend the shoulder in the same manner. As I've already made this pattern in the yellow fabric that I'm wearing today, I add a V neckline to make this pattern a little bit different from that one. I move on to draw the back side of the bodice pattern. I will need to do the same changes as I did to the front part of it. And as you can see, I'm not home alone. My dad is walking in the background with his washing gloves on. So here you can see me extending the shoulder strap in the same manner as I did with the front part of the bodice. Then I cut out the pattern, and I probably don't need to say that you should not use your fabric scissor for this part unless you are a crazy person. As I did not have enough paper to draw it all the way, I had to add a little bit of paper, and this is always acceptable when you are hacking patterns. So here I got all my pieces. I got my back, my front, my princess seam part and my extensions for each pattern, and this is what the extension would look at the Betty dress pattern for the back side. Here I try to get a shot of my whole circle skirt on the fabric before I started to cut it out, as you can see I'm doing here. And it takes up a lot of space, even though both back and front panel is cut on the fold. Here is my back bodice pattern, a line on the fabric on the straight grain before I start to cut it out. Here are my front bodice pieces, also on a straight grain and cut on the fold, and my pocket pieces, which you probably saw was not on the straight grain, but I got a little fabric restriction at the end here, so I hope that's okay. I'm just happy to have the pockets in the same fabric as the rest of the dress. That will make them much less visible if they peek out. Okay, so I almost forgot that I had to make a facing. Here you see the back facing, which is the easiest part. It's just the shoulder strap and about 2 inches down on the pattern, as you can see here. The front part, however, is a bit more difficult because of the princess seam. I've done the same as with the back piece, drawn the shoulder strap and add 2 inches or so. Then I also need to control that it match with the underarm seam of the back bodice. I've drawn 2 dots here, which I will connect to make the facing. And here you can see me doing just that by drawing off the princess seam part onto a new piece of paper and connecting the two dots for the facing. Here I try to illustrate how these weirdly shaped facing pieces are going to go together. And here we have all my pattern pieces freshly cut out. We got my princess seam part and its facing, my front and back bodies and their facing, front and back circle skirt and my pockets. It's finally time to start sewing, and I start with the princess seam. I start by matching up the bottom of the pattern and the top of the curve, and then I take my time to match up these curves because you can see they are absolutely opposite of each other, but just be patient and take your time, and after a while you may end up having it like this. And it's a pain, I know, but what could you do when your body looks this way? You have just to take the time it will take to do it. When that is done, I take some time to match up my weirdly looking facing pieces, and hopefully you will understand what I tried to do when I am done sewing this part, because I know they look quite weird at the moment. And I also forgot to cut the front part on the fold, but we just pretend I didn't do that. And the first stitches in this video, you guys. Here I got half of my front facing sewn together, and since this piece is going this way, we will see that this curve is smooth and nice. And here are my done princess seams, and I'm going in for the side seams, but I should probably have eaten before I started doing this, because I am doing it totally wrong and putting the center back to the side seams, which is not convenient at all, and I do not recommend doing this because yeah, I think it could be avoided if you actually eat. At least eating helping me stay focused. Moving on to the facing, and at least I was able to connect the right pieces together this time around, and more crises were avoided by the fact that my sister is coming with some drinks. And a friendly reminder to cut your curves if you want to press them nicely. To stabilize my pockets, I'm accustomed to making 20 centimeter strips of interfacing that are 2 centimeters wide on each side of the pocket to stabilize it. So here you see me cutting out those strips of interfacing that I will be using for my pockets. I also recommend to interface your facing, but since this fabric was so tightly woven, I didn't do it this time. I usually place the interfacing strips about 5 centimeters down from the waistline on each side seam. And of course, if you are like me, I will recommend to take a second look at them to make sure that they are the right way and you will not get the sticky part on your iron when you start ironing them. When the interfacing is safely ironed in place, I place the pocket right side together, 6 centimeters down from the waistline. When I start sewing, I start 1 centimeter above the pocket and goes down to about 1 centimeter under the pocket with a seam allowance on 1 centimeter. I should probably mention that I have 1.5 centimeter seam allowance on the rest of the garment. When I'm done sewing, I will go to my pressing table and press my pocket in this direction. Then I take my front and back panel of my skirt with right sides together and sew around like this with 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. When sewing together, I go straight down until I get 1.5 centimeter into the pocket before I turn the fabric with my needle still in it before I start going around the pocket, and I will also do the same at the end of the pocket. Like you can see here, goes all the way to the corner like this, and then turn the fabric with the needle still in and continue sewing straight down. And we got a pocket! I pressed my pockets to the front side of my skirt, as you can see from the inside here. Moving on to the facing, I start by matching up the center front with this V-neck that I made. It's quite easy, but it's probably a good idea to mark the center front if you have a round neck. Then I will match up the side seams on each side and the center back before I go on and match up the rest of the shoulder straps. And also remember to overlock all your raw edges, for I forgot to mention that. So here you can see the result of me matching up the facing to my front bodice. And then I will sew around with 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So when we turn it inside out, those weird looking shapes you see here is what we can tie together to make the bow on each shoulder. So here I am sewing it together in one go and using the trick with the needle in the fabric while turning the fabric for the pointy ends on each shoulder strap. Stop at the edge, turn the fabric, continue sewing like this. To make the bow look as smooth as possible after pressing, I start by cutting off the pointy end on each of the bows, and then I continue to reduce the seam allowance around the whole garment. I also go and cut all the curves, because as you can see here, there are a lot of curves in this facing and bodice. Then I go ahead and turn it inside out, or here it's outside out. And I also use this blue tool that I showed in the start of this clip to help me turn it inside out, and afterwards to press all the seams in the direction that I want and make the end of each shoulder strap more pointy, so it will be easier to press them to look the way I would like them to in the end. And here you can see the pointy end that I have been referring to. To avoid the facing from peeking out in the neck and under the arms, etc., I will do a row of understitching where I stitch the seam allowance to the facing on this side. So I press it upwards like this and then do a row of stitching, and it will look like this, and it will be on the inside of the garment. And here you can see how it looks when it's finally done, and it avoided from peeking out on the front of the bodice like you can see here. I also do a stitch in the ditch under the arm in the side seams like this to avoid the facing from peeking out. Then I move on to matching my bodice with my skirt pattern, and I start by matching up the side seams, the center front, the center side and the center back before I stitch it together like this. After having pressed my seam allowance upwards, I start to put in my zipper. I usually use an invisible zipper, as you can see here. Since I was planning for putting in a zipper earlier on, I haven't sewn my facing all the way to the center back so I could hide the top of my zipper inside the facing. So here you see me placing the zipper on the right side of the fabric with the teeth facing towards me, so that I later can fold the fabric over so that the teeth will be facing towards the center back. I hope this is understandable, but you will probably see it later. So here I have pinned the zipper in place, and when I fold it over like this, the teeth are pointing in the right direction and the zipper gets on the inside of the garment. Before I start sewing, I change to this invisible zipper foot on my machine. This foot makes it easy for me to sew tightly against the zipper teeth, like you can see here. I do the same on the left side, place the zipper on the right side of the fabric with the teeth facing away from the center back. Then I close the zipper to line up the center back and the top of the garment to see that it will work nicely and close nicely like this. And here I try to show that I will also fold over the facing when I'm done sewing it, and this filming is really bad, so I'm so sorry about that because you can't even see what I'm trying to do. But yeah, this is kind of what it will look like in the end, and I will hand stitch this part. So here I'm trying to show that I have sandwiched the zipper inside my facing, and I will do the last part by machine like I've done with the rest of the facing, and it will look just like this. Then I will just hand stitch the facing and sew down the back seam with machine before I go on to hemming. Just a few more hand stitches and then the garment is done. Hooray!
Grunnlaget selv.
Nei, det smakte bare noe godt.
Ja, da må du takke Rema 1000.
Ja, det kan jeg vel.